Hello again. Welcome back to another A Photographer Talks. I have to say this week I'm very excited. The photographer I'm speaking to on this fine day uh, is someone who I met through Michael Clark, a photographer that I interviewed in the early days of this series. I had the pleasure of meeting Natalie back in January 2019 when I had a trip to Santa Fe to visit Michael Clark. I had initially become very aware of her images and fallen in love with them more so than when I actually got to Santa Fe and started seeing her pictures in, if you will, real life. She has a very interesting story, having gone from one very different career to her current, and I'm very excited about being able to discuss all of her pictures with her today. Natalie has shown her work in a variety of exhibitions around the world, including London, Berlin, New York, and Los Angeles. Not bad for somebody who hasn't been doing it very long. She was one of 5 invited photographers for the National 2018 Best of Contemporary Photography at the Fort Wayne Museum of Art, and was recently named one of the top 10 photographers to watch at the Los Angeles Center for Digital Art. Her photographs are in permanent collections of museums and institutions, as well as numerous private collections. She is represented by the Turner Carroll Gallery in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the Susan Spiritus Gallery in Newport Beach, California, and Gallery Minimal in Berlin, who I will be speaking with next week. When Natalie isn't looking for photos, in her own words, behind forgotten shopping centres, you can find her checking her Instagram, allegedly, while hiking the mountains around Santa Fe. We can make our own minds up on that one when we speak to her ourselves. Please join me in welcoming Natalie Christensen to your screens. Et voila. Natalie Christensen, hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are you? It's wonderful to see
Good.
you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm very excited, and it's great to see one of your fine pieces on the wall behind you, although it actually looks a bit crooked
Yes,
in this picture.
there it is. It's called a good day.
Oh, how apt. How very
Yeah.
apt. It's good. Do you have you been out shooting much in these recent days?
Yes, actually have been shooting quite a lot through the metaphorical lens of, you know, pandemics and looming apocalypse.
Wow. Yeah.
That's how it feels sometimes over here in this part of the world. Not sure about your experience there, but no, it does feel like really intense time. So whether I'm actively thinking about that when I'm shooting or not, I feel like it's probably coming through in my work, but just my chosen subject matter.
Well, that's true. I mean, it's fairly natural for um, shall we say, current environments to affect photographers' work and have a big impact. And
Mm.
especially, I suppose, someone with your history. Very interesting, really, to understand that 2014. For those of you watching, Natalie decided to give up what she had previously been doing and move from Kentucky to New Mexico, where in Kentucky she had been a psychotherapist. Now, in part, I think that possibly explains some of her imagery, but I'm not going to put words into her mouth. I'm interested to understand just briefly. You know, you left for reasons, and you put down one part of your life and picked up a camera. What was the, if it's not too much to reveal, what was the big thing that made that happen?
The decision to move was made very much in cooperation with my husband, who has connections to New Mexico going back to his college days. And um, he had a number of friends here, and he was at a place in his career where he was free to move. And so while I had lived in Kentucky and been around my family my whole life, I felt ready for a new adventure. So we decided to come here. The decision to pick up a camera was not, it wasn't like I'm going to stop being a psychotherapist and become a photographer. I'm still a psychotherapist. My main work is still in that realm. So it wasn't like I'm going to leave this and do that. The photography sort of happened in tandem, I guess. I
Hmm.
started just exploring this new place with my iPhone. I mean, I was just taking pictures because I was trying to understand this very different place um, than where I had come from. And you've been here, so you know it feels really different from other
Does.
parts of the U.S. It has a very distinct aesthetic, and there's almost a myth about it, or there is a myth about it. So I think I was taking pictures to just try to understand the place, and almost from a tourist perspective. When I was starting out, I wasn't thinking about being an artist. It just evolved, I guess, from there.
So
So go ahead.
were there any influences that you well maybe aware of now subliminally beforehand that had any influence on the style of photography that you started to produce?
Um, it was not conscious. I've always been interested in art and design and interiors and fashion. I mean, those things have always drawn me. So I think, arranging spaces was something that I was already doing in my life. So I found that I don't arrange my photographs; they're found moments. But when I'm composing them, I almost approach them in the same way as I would a space. Um, but I would say painting and painters probably influenced my work the most in the early days. I didn't know photography. I didn't know any photographers. I mean, I could maybe list a few, but I wasn't thinking about their work when I was making my work. I was mostly thinking about things from a painting perspective. Um, and I think you can see that in my early work because it's mostly abstract, and it's a lot about color fields and
Hmm.
geometry, and um, that's the perspective I was coming from at that time.
I mean, obviously, Santa Fe itself is a hugely rich in color place. New Mexico,
Hmm. Hmm.
in general, but Santa Fe very specifically. So, with some of the adobe kind of architecture around, it creates and makes for massively graphical imagery,
Hmm.
especially
Hmm.
with this intensely blue sky and the extremely well known Santa Fe light. Um,
Right.
your first series, a deconstructed set, the deconstructed self, starts to highlight some of that. Obviously, you could see that very deeply in your work, and it goes on from there, and you start to see the development. Um, with things like our first image, open to new ideas. You said you were exploring color, but obviously you started to create sets of imagery in a very
Hmm.
classical sort of fine art manner. Was
Hmm.
there something that you started to come to, or when you'd taken all of your images, did you start to then realize you were exploring color, and then that kind of led to, if you will, the fine art series? And I'll put open to new ideas on the screen while you talk.
Okay. Okay. Um, so when I was beginning to take lots of pictures, and I was really, I wouldn't say obsessed. That might be a bit strong, but I would go out every day, a few hours every day, shooting, just roaming around and looking for scenes that attracted me. I wasn't like specific about I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there. It was just a kind of a wandering. Um, I didn't understand that photographers worked in series. I never, I didn't study art in any formal way. So I was just taking pictures. And some people were starting to say you should maybe take yourself a little more seriously as an artist. And I was not ready to do that at that point. I was just making pictures, making pictures. As a psychotherapist, one of the things that we do is look for patterns in people's lives and start to bring those out and examine the patterns. So I applied the same thing to my work. I was looking for patterns in my imagery. Why do I continue to take pictures of this particular thing or that particular thing? And I sort of worked backwards, I guess. I took the pictures and then I really was reflecting on what is it about? Well, why am I doing this? What's under the surface? Why am I not taking pictures of, people on the street or landscapes or, whatever? Why am I drawn to this? So
Mm.
the image that you're showing now, um, I think I was developing more of an understanding of what my work was about at that point with open to new ideas.
Okay, and the one thing that I kind of love about in here, obviously you've got some very good lines, and lining up of the bin with the shades of blue, but you've got the little lonely cloud, and Santa Fe skies are just astounding. Um,
Yes.
the random cloud appearance, yeah, it kind of makes you wonder if there's another little personality out there talking to you. It's clearly a theme. Look at the one on the wall
Yes.
behind you.
Yes. There's
Uh,
one behind me as well.
they
Um,
look they're like your sort of your spiritual friend almost.
yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it. Someone who I is a mentor and helps me with submissions and sequencing my work and choosing images. He pointed out that the cloud was the only organic element in my work at that point. And now I do incorporate more um, living things or dead things in my work, plant life or whatever. But that was a great observation I hadn't considered. That yeah, it's just clouds are the only kind of life form in a lot of that work from that series.
It's also kind of a calming element, I find. Kind of. I mean, the light and the blues all very calming just by their pure
Hmm.
nature, but this sort of the little cloud makes you just
Yeah.
feel a little bit more like you can breathe, in a
Well, and
way,
that's a
and
really
it adds to
another,
reality.
yeah, that he has also pointed out, the person I'm referring to, that many of my images have a real claustrophobic feel, even though they're very bright, very colorful. There might be a cloud. There's a real confining feeling to them. And I do think about that in my work. I try to create it at that point when the image that you're showing now. I was not thinking about that. I think that was just an unconscious
Hmm.
thing that was happening that I wasn't fully aware of.
So the names, starting with obviously open to new ideas. At what point did you decide that you should give all of your images specific names,
It,
as
I
opposed
just
to
felt like I was
Cloud 1,
supposed
Cloud 2?
to. I felt like I was supposed to title my images. I'd seen lots of art in my life and, been to museums and galleries and was paying attention. And I noticed, okay, people title their images. So I did that. I find it really difficult to do. I've been told your titles are too leading. I love your titles. You should not have titles. Don't tell me what to think about this work. I mean, it's like a swirl of reactions to the titles. Um,
Much the
so,
same as photography, though. Really, I mean, it's completely
yeah,
subjective. So obviously, I think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Do you think that they are influenced by, well, I would imagine they really are, but influenced by your history of psychotherapy because you
Yes.
put different meaning into it?
Yes. Yes, definitely. And I don't title all my images now, mostly because I just find it really hard to do. Um, but if it comes to me easily and it doesn't feel too hokey, too like, I want you to think this, um, then I will title it. But I could spend much longer on the title than I do on the actual image. It's like
Maybe that's part
just
of it.
labor over it. It's crazy.
That's quite interesting to know, actually. You know, you walk around. I mean, do you still shoot with an iPhone? You don't. You walk around with a
Well,
5D or something
sometimes
nowadays.
that's the camera I always have with me. I try if I um, shoot something with my iPhone that I feel like has a real potential as a successful image, I will go back with my camera. Sometimes I just go out with my camera, for dedicated shooting. But I mostly shoot with my Sony now, which is a A7R2,
Okay.
I think.
Okay. So now we know her brand of camera, everybody.
I'm
Very
so
good.
not technical. I mean, there's so much I need to learn about
No. Okay.
photography from that end of
Well, that's
things, but
arguable,
that's what
really.
I shoot with. Yeah,
There's
that's what
there's
people
many
say.
many schools of thought that really the one camera you have is the camera that's important is the one that's with you. You
Yeah,
started off with an
yeah,
iPhone, and clearly, you've done pretty well with that so far. So,
yeah.
apart from the need of resolution, I'm not sure you necessarily need to worry about it too much. Um, Going back to the
Well,
names, and
I
then,
mean, that is always a consideration, though. I mean, how big can I make it?
oh,
The
wow, I
print.
suppose yes, there is that question. I mean, a lot of your work is so supremely graphical. You could almost convert them into graphical images by the use of Illustrator or some such. Have you thought about going down that avenue out of interest?
No, I have not. Um, Again, because it's this whole other technical stuff, software and things I have to learn. I have a printer here who has been great and does all my large prints, and I trust him with all of that. So I haven't explored all the various possibilities. It's on the list of
Okay.
things to do.
Well, if you've got a solid printer, then you probably don't need to worry about it, I'd say. Um,
No,
so
he's great.
to go back to the names and the
Uh-huh.
series, the deconstruct itself. I particularly love the name of the second shot we're going to discuss. You can't get there from here. It's quite ominous, isn't it? Really, it's quite ominous. It's quite a grey day out here, so it's quite ominous as well for that reason. On the screen now, we've got our favourite little clouds, um, and actually, it's a very amusing shot. I have no idea where it is in Santa Fe, um, but it, it's kind of amusing because actually, I can understand why you called it that. You can't get there from here. Where on earth does that go to, or what is the idea behind it? Did you retouch out something?
No, that is the actual scene. And when you come back here, if you do to Santa Fe, I'll take you there. Um,
Okay, deal.
it is behind. It is behind a shopping center, um, which that is a place that's full of material for me. Usually, no matter what city or I can usually find something interesting there. But that is the scene. I mean, that I didn't do anything. I mean, of course, contrast and color and things like that. But I have been asked, was there a door there? And you photoshopped that door out. I did not. It's just that bridge up into a wall, and then
That's very
the
cool.
vast sky behind it. Um, I feel like, it. it's relevant now, that image. I think we're all feeling that, it's like just on the other side is
Happiness and
you
joy,
know,
normality.
yeah, all the things we're longing for. Um, but we can't get there. We can see it. We know what it's like because we've experienced it before, but we're stuck. Of course, none of that was happening when I took that image, but it was relatable to me in aspects of my life, and so yeah, I still go to that location and look at it and wonder if I can get a better shot, and um, it fascinates me.
I mean, it obviously has a certain resonance now
Mhm.
with our sort of situation. You know, it does look like a wall, um, and you know, it's all beautiful. The other side, um, obviously, a bit of a sort of feel for a lot of your images because of that just amazing sky, and the amazing sky kind of gives us this graphical divide, really, again because of the light and the fine lines. But what do you think it is that draws you to this sort of location to go and take these shots? Is it the emptiness? Is it the oddness? Is it the searching for more complex ideas that you find at the end of a doorless stairway?
Um, I think it's all of those things. I am interested in the ideas of Carl Jung, who's a Swiss psychoanalyst and worked with Freud. And I've studied his theories and writings and spent years working with a Jungian analyst myself. And the idea of the shadow self, that the side of us that we don't know or we deny or we are blind to. Learning about that side of ourselves is really important, because if you deny it's going to come back and get you somehow.
Mm.
So I'm always thinking about that in my work, like what's underneath, what's in the places that we don't want to look. Most people don't want to go behind shopping malls or shopping centers. So who knows what you're going to find back there? And I certainly have found things I'm like, I need to get out of here now. But
Understandable. Yeah.
um, so, I mean, that's what draws me to those places. Is what's underneath, what's behind there. What am I going to find metaphorically and literally?
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, I mean, you put these two images in the deconstructed self, your
Mhm.
initial body of work, effectively,
Yeah,
or
I would say
should
that
we?
was probably the most developed and the one I've worked on the most. Sorry, there's a printer going off in the background. I
That's all right.
don't know
It's
if you
okay.
hear it.
Um, yes, some of it I can, some of it. Obviously, there's the other images that I'd like to run through are from your last night. I dreamt I knew how to swim. But before I do,
Yes.
I just want to touch on our friend Zocalo.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if the one behind you is. I can't quite tell.
Yes.
But
Yes.
in Santa Fe and around Santa Fe, there's this wonderful architecture by Mr. Zocalo. The Is it the Santa Fe School of Art? The red buildings,
Yes, the Santa Fe Art Institute and
Arts
the
Institute.
former Santa Fe College of Art and Design, which is now closed. But
Yes, yeah,
yes, both Zocalo, which is where this was shot behind me, and the Santa Fe University of Art and Design. It's a university, not a college. Are both designed by Ricardo Legarreta, who's a Mexican, was
That's
a Mexican
gorgeous. Yes.
architect, and
Yeah.
worked with Barragan and um, our favorite places to explore with my camera. I never
And would you?
tire of them.
No, I mean if you haven't been, anybody who gets to watch this, you have to go. They're amazing. Um,
Yeah.
I got ridiculously creatively carried away when I was there. Shot loads of pictures, which, funny enough, I I see some of my pictures in some of your pictures, so I can see how sort of our minds work from a graphical
Yeah.
appreciation perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. There are endless opportunities in both of those locations. And they
yeah,
have been discovered. I mean, I see images from there from lots of photographers now. Not that I started that or anything, but it's just
yes, you did.
interesting as as photography becomes more and more accessible and popular and people are sharing their work. Those are places that I see pop up a lot when I'm looking at social media.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel were they some of the first places that you started shooting? Did that have a lot of influence on your style?
Yes. Well, Zocalo definitely was I have another series called New Mexico Deconstructed, which was the first that came before the deconstruct itself. And that's pure abstracted geometry, color, sky. Um, and my very first images for it, I didn't know it was going to be a series. I didn't know what I was doing at that point. But the early images that were successful um, were shot there. So that was my playground.
I see.
So
And that was the 2014-15.
it was more like 2016. I did
Okay.
not start shooting when I first moved here. When I look back at this is funny. You know how a photograph can be featured on Instagram, another feed picks up your photo and features it on their feed. Well, the first time that happened was around September of 2016. And that's sort of when I think, oh, I'm I'm doing photography now when my first image got featured on social media.
There
So
you go.
late 2016.
Nice. Well, there you go. So obviously,
Yeah.
Zocalo and the deconstructed New Mexico, it had something. It meant something to you in your head for sure, and
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah,
started
it
to
did.
influence a lot of your work. So
Yes.
last night, not last night, but last night I don't tell me how to swim.
Yeah.
This is well, you've moved on. You've moved on from the crazy graphic color sort of maelstrom, shall we say, that is sort of Zocalo, and really powerfully strong images. You've walked through to the deconstructed self, where you started to break it down. You've done your color comparisons and understood color a bit more, and now you've gone on to imagery that is definitely deeper in meaning. Um, your names are getting, kind of more um, mind mindful, I suppose. And we start off with, in fact, I'll start off with, are these chairs taken?
Yes.
Because I love that. I love the picture. I love the picture, the emptiness, but the fullness of it. That they are all extremely thought provoking. But are these chairs
Thank you.
taken? Is great. It makes me think that there's possibly some Germanic blood in you, or there's always when you see things like that, there's always a relationship to that nationality. But this is beautiful. This obviously sums up Santa Fe in a great way.
Well, you know what? That's
But it's
not
not
Santa
in
Fe.
Santa Fe.
That's good
Where is this? Is it
if you feel, I
Miami?
mean, I think lots of people think that it is, or that most of my swimming pool images are shot around here, but that one is not. It was made in Kentucky, actually, in my parents' neighborhood. It was the neighborhood swimming pool, and that was one of my very early swimming pool images. Again, I didn't fully understand why I was so drawn to pools. Um,
Or not, because there's not much pool in it.
no, there's not. It's more about the negative space and
It
those
is, yeah.
chairs. Um, but yes, I love that subject. I will never tire of pools, I don't think. And they are very personal. Um, in the statement, I'm talking about my early life and my relationship to swimming pools going back to, being a toddler. So the fact that that pool is in my parents' neighborhood and is so connected to my early life, um, I I like that, I'm able to find things that interest me in being aware. But that one's particularly close to my roots.
So, out of interest, the history, you're very open about it on your website. That it was uh, through your childhood and the times of divorce that pools were the kind of the constant, shall we say,
Yeah.
through your childhood.
Yes.
There was always a pool wherever you went, and that sort of, I suppose, is your happy place. Um,
It, it's it is. It can represent that. It can also represent danger or foreboding or um, I try to hit both in my when I shoot pools. I want it to be aesthetically right for me anyway, and then also the story and the feeling from it. If someone feels slightly uneasy when they look at my work, then I feel like it's a successful image.
then, if you think back to when you photographed your first pool, or because obviously with a lot of these things, you said it already, the idea has developed as you've shot, but you've been shooting
Hmm.
subconsciously. Clouds,
Hmm.
as an example. Did you find that you were shooting pools, but you didn't really know why, and then there was a eureka
Yes,
moment that you went, "Oh my goodness,
yes, yes.
how
At
did that come
first,
about?"
I can still remember. I didn't send you this particular image, but it's called "Go Deeper," and it was the first swimming pool image that worked, and that that people really responded to as well. And that first image I shot I climbed a fence. I was hiking with some friends. We were wrapping up and in a parking lot, and there was a pool in this neighborhood, and there was a fence. I couldn't get to the pool, so I climbed up, stuck my phone over, and shot it. And it turned out to be an image I really loved. And at first, I thought it was about the unconscious. I was thinking about it more generally, like water often represents emotions and the unconscious, and so that's just what I thought I was doing the work for. Um, but it's been within the last, I don't know, year or so that a conversation with another photographer friend whose work is extremely personal and very much about her upbringing, it just dawned on me like, what is it about pools? And I mean, you can read it in my statement. That's what it is. I know that. I know it comes from my upbringing. A pool represented that everything was okay, and if the pool was gone, if it sounds crazy, and um, I'm not explaining it very well, but it represented stability in my life, and
Mm-hmm.
um, there wasn't a lot of that actually. So it, I'm interested in the surface of what a pool represents, like that things are okay, but also the dark side of it as well.
It's a very very interesting to hear the metaphor because obviously pools can represent both joy and fear for everybody. Um,
Yeah,
I think what's
bad
kind of
things can happen in
interesting,
pools.
well, yes, they can, but I think especially if you look through all of your pictures from your series of pools, there's not really any of the negative in there. It's all very happy. It's all again very colourful,
Yeah,
or it's this the big or it's the big colour in the image. So as with Are These Chairs Taken up on screen now, there's very subtle in there, very subtle amount of blue, but it's strikes you straight away.
yeah.
And that's what's I think very interesting with your pictures. Some of them involve reflections, some of them involve calm, and as we flick through and look at a couple of other images, um, it it shows thought. It shows great kind of thinking space, space to breathe, and that you can almost see actually your brain now kind of clicking back to those times when you were younger,
I think
and almost trying to relive some of those moments or
yes,
photograph
and
those ones that you had.
also, I mean, my use of color and form with whatever I'm shooting. I mean, I approach most scenes the same, whether it's a pool or a dumpster or a closed door, whatever. But the use of color and the use of light conveys a certain feeling of positivity, or it makes people happy, or they're just aesthetically drawn to it. But I'm hoping too that they can see that there's an underside to this beauty, to this scene that looks perfect. It's not really. There's there's a lot going on under the surface.
Mm.
Not everyone will see that in my work. I know that, but if some people see it, then I'm glad. I feel like
Well,
I've
I mean,
done something.
there of course I think there is the possible negativity to it of emptiness.
Yeah,
Kind of reference being any organic matter in your pictures or a cloud.
yeah,
In this last image, you've got this fantastic scene, which just goodness. I look out the window today and it's grey and raining here in Britain, and I haven't been on a plane in months, and the
yeah.
thought of lying in that place right now is heaven.
I
But
know.
it almost has a resonance now in a way, doesn't it? Because actually, possibly there are lots of places like that with nobody in them anyway,
Yeah,
because
we
of where
can't
we're
go
at.
there.
Which leads on quite nicely to the second image to talk about from this series of I Waited, which is clearly
Yes,
very pertinent right now for both of
yes.
us and many others.
Uh-huh.
Here, it's about one person. I think they're waiting until it's 10 o'clock before they can go swimming, and they're obviously reflecting on that decision. Um,
Yes.
Anything in particular that really stands out for you with this image? Does this take you back to a certain swimming pool? Does it take you back to a certain point in time?
Um, I don't know what I was actually that particular pool. I knew it was there, but I had never been able to access it before. And so that particular day was the first day I had gotten in. Since then, I've been back to that location many times and can get to it quite easily now. But I think I was so excited to be in the space that day. I just couldn't believe it. So I probably was feeling quite good. But I don't recall what I was thinking at the time when I was just shooting as fast as I could, which is like my situation most of the time because I just find these places and a lot of times I'm not supposed to be there or someone might will have a problem with me being there. Or why are you taking pictures of this? So I have to work really fast. I knew I might be asked questions in that space. So I wasn't thinking that much. I was just shooting, shooting, shooting. And this is my favorite one from that day. It's all symbolic. The empty chair, the reflection of the window, that clock. It to me it evokes a lot of loneliness, um, all wrapped up in something that looks luxurious. I
Yes.
mean, you can have everything and still be alone, um, waiting for something, waiting for someone, waiting for I don't know, fill in the blank.
That's definitely a clear theme for your work. Um, is there, do you think, any particular reason, in your own life, or is it because of being a psychotherapist? You sort of discover
I
those elements in people, and you're trying to
I think
visually
this
show them.
work is it's primarily about myself. I mean, I've spent my career listening to other people, helping them work through whatever is happening in their life. Um, and this work was it was my chance to do that with myself. Um, but it's a visual conversation with myself. Um, so yes, I mean it's very much about me. It's about I mean I'm in midlife. I had left my everything I knew that was familiar, came to this very strange place, which is filled with lots of people just like me who don't have any real roots here. They just, you know, fall in love with the myth, the romance of the place, and
Mm,
um, we're all just sort of wandering around, like trying to
with your own
understand
thing.
it.
Yeah. Well,
So,
that's an interesting. Um, it's interesting to hear that. I think being in Santa Fe, having had personal experience there, it does. It actually brings a certain amount of calmness, and I
mhm.
suppose with that calmness brings loneliness. But it's the bigger. I think it's something to do with the big open skies.
Yeah,
The this just very relaxing light almost. Not to want to sound slightly ridiculous, but it does have a certain calmness, really, to
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Uh,
I and it's so ancient, the cultures here are so old and mysterious and it's a place that's drawn so many artists. I'm just one of many, although I
yeah,
wasn't an artist when I came here, but um, something about the place brought it out in me. But um, someone said to me, Santa Fe has a lot of lone wolves, a lot of people who come here for whatever reasons, and they're, you know, introverted, doing their own thing. It's not an easy place to make friends or have connections because I think there are just lots of people who are just,
the
I don't know,
introvert
not
artist.
interested. Yeah.
Yes, I suppose that's possibly quite true. I mean, judging by the amount of artists that are around, really, or the artistic work you can see.
Yeah.
Um, so to the last image that we'll talk about today, there's obviously far more that we could talk about, but we've only got a restricted amount of time, and
Sure.
we can do another one if you feel comfortable at another point. The last image, I think, for me, sums up actually really nicely what we've just been talking about. So you've called it pale semblance.
Yeah.
Uh, it's from the swimming pool series,
Yes.
and uh, this image to me is just the epitome of calm. I mean, a swimming pool untouched, kind of flat water is always beautiful, but there's something about this, the color palette. I think clearly the soft light. Um, that you don't really see the color of the water. Obviously, you assume it's blue, but you've got the reflection of the large wall, so it
Yeah.
gives this muted feel. Um, what is it about this shot for you that sings out? You obviously got the ladder into the abyss,
Yes.
into the
The
pool,
ladder
I guess.
or rail is almost always, I don't think there's a single pool image that doesn't have also have the rail in it. Um,
I'm going to find one now.
there might, I won't say there's none, but I typically incorporate stairs or railing or some kind of ladder in the work. Um, that image was shot at the latter part of 2019. I was invited on an architectural photography um, trip, basically, a delegation of photographers, architects, curators. We all went to the UAE and were hosted by the embassy of the UAE. And it was a whirlwind trip of about a week and, 14-hour days of seeing everything they could possibly show us all around the Emirates. And it was fantastic. That pool was located in, I think it's called Masdar City, which is a planned uh, carbon neutral city that's being built in the desert in the UAE. And there's
Wow.
it's called the University of Artificial Intelligence, I believe. Um, and this school, I just, we went to Masdar City. They said, you've got 30 minutes. We were running out of time. We were going to this mosque. And I was just, everyone was like racing around because it was so fantastic. The architecture was so unusual. And anyway, I found the pool and I had maybe 10 minutes. I mean, I knew the bus was going to leave. I needed to like hurry. And so I took many, many, many shots as fast as I could, hoping that I wasn't going to get, booted out of the space or that someone else was going to find the location. I mean, I was like, oh, this is so good. So anyway, that pool, it was taken there, and all I was thinking was, this is heaven. I look at this place. It was huge. It was actually two pools side by side, and um, I just, I don't know. The image itself probably conveys something really different than what I was experiencing in the moment because I was like frantically shooting and hurrying and hoping that some shot would turn out because I mean it was hot. It was I had like two cameras. I had no one to hold anything. I was just rushing. So I think the image hopefully conveys something other than that, but that's what was happening in the moment.
That's interesting, isn't it? I love it when you hear the backstory to a picture. It's one of the things I love about doing these talks is that you look at this picture and what did I say at the beginning, that it's the epitome of calmness, and yet you've just described that it was actually everything but that, um,
Yeah.
at the very time. What was it that just you explained that you got just so ridiculous excited and you called this is heaven, you found heaven. What is it about this that's heaven? Why is this ultimately the strongest image from swimming pools,
Um,
um, for you?
for me, I don't know if it's the strongest. I mean, it's one of the
Well, you did
most
just call it
recent
heaven.
ones. I did. It was the place. It was two gigantic pools. There was not a soul around. The water there was one guy. I could send you an image. You can see him in the shadows of one of the shots. He's in the dark, looking a bit ominous, but otherwise, the place was empty. And so it had everything I love: a pool, light, shadow, no humans, me and my camera. I mean,
There you go.
you know,
That's it.
what could be better?
That sums up Natalie Christensen's photography. Pool, light, shadow, and no humans. So, so
Exactly.
where do you think you'll go from here? Sort of what body of work are you working on now? I mean, obviously I've looked through your site and I've been following your Instagram for quite some time now. And you've been doing some good collaborations. One of them with a British artist.
Yeah. Yes, Jim
Forgive me.
Air.
That's it.
Yeah. I'm working on a series now called Suspended Animation, which is all about, you know, this time that we're living in. Just I looked up the definition of suspended animation, which basically means all biological functions have stopped, but you're not quite dead. Um, you're sort of just held there in this medical state, and
That's how you
that's
feel
how this
right now.
time feels.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm making images to reflect that feeling of suspended animation. It's not only the pandemic, it's the upcoming election. We're all, quite anxious, quite like what's coming. We've I won't speak for all,
Of
speak for
course. Of
myself. The
course.
last 4 years have been quite difficult. And now we're in a period of time where we could change it. But are we going to be successful in changing that? It's like, you're holding your breath, not knowing, not knowing what's coming. So, but allowing some hope, but not too much. It's because you don't want to be devastated.
No.
I mean, it's
No.
like all those things are swirling in my brain right now, and that's what this new work is about.
Okay. And it's all clearly focused on the environment of Santa Fe and New Mexico because
Yes,
you can't really
yes,
go
you
much
would
further.
definitely recognize um, the approach is mine, and the subject matter is still what I've always been drawn to. But that's the frame for it.
And are you putting a particular time frame on this? You know, kind of you started
Uh,
and you'll finish. That's it.
yeah, the images start in March, and I'm still making them.
Okay.
And I'm working on the statement right now. I have about 20 images that I feel like are strong enough for series. It's not done. I mean, I'll keep making photos as long as this goes on.
Well, yes,
So, and
obviously,
in terms
but
of the collaboration, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to
You were
say,
saying.
obviously, you will, but then there is a question as to whether it will actually ever end. So I wonder
Well,
if you would
right.
put a physical end to it.
I never know when something's done, How do
No,
you know? Like the pools
no,
will
I
never be
agree.
done.
I do agree.
The
I mean, I
deconstruct
personally,
itself will never be done.
yes, I mean, I personally have a a series I've been working on. I did a book. Um, I haven't really finished shooting those images, but I've put it to bed for a while now.
Yeah.
You know, I must confess I don't know, but have you produced any books? Published any books?
No, I have certainly thought about it and have had some conversations about it, but at this stage, no, I have not.
Okay, I think that's something that you should think about. If this situation of the suspended animation continues, and you feeling you need another little project,
Yeah.
let's see that book. I'll help you out if you need.
Okay. Okay. That would be great.
Is yeah, it's a very satisfying thing to do actually when you've been working on a big body of work. Um, Something else interestingly, I was speaking to uh, Martin Holtz, who
Yes.
is, I'm sure you've come across him. He's wonderful, and we had an interview a few weeks ago, and he kindly sent me um, his self-published little magazine,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
which is very good. I think it's very fitting for his and your sort of style of work. Um, so maybe that's a challenge for 2020,
Yeah.
2021. Sorry.
Yeah, 2020's rapidly coming to a close.
It is. I know very much so. Um, so what one? There's a couple of questions I'd like to run past you, and then we'll wrap up. Out of all of your images, obviously there's quite a predominant one behind you. Is there one shot for you that stands out as your sort of Natalie Christensen shot? Obviously, you had a number in the Royal Photographic Society Awards last year, which I saw. But is there one shot that kind of defines you, that is your favourite
Mm.
currently, at least?
There's one that I think about a lot. It's another pool image. It's not on the website. It will be in the suspended animation series. But it's a pool that's filled with it's green and it's got stuff, trash floating in it, and it's it's very pristine all around it. There's two ladders, one on each side. They're facing each other, but they're separated by the cesspool, basically, of darkness, virus, whatever you want to. That I think about it as,
Mm,
what we're living in now, that we all have to, go to our respective safe places and we can see each other and we can, wave and,
touch.
but we cannot get close to each other. It's not safe. And that's probably the image that comes to my mind the most. I think, I don't know what other people will feel about it, but that's what I think of.
Well, there's that dark
It's
image
very,
from your pool
very
series,
now.
clearly, that we said didn't exist, but clearly does.
Yeah. It's on my Instagram feed.
I
It's
think
a
I
few
think
images
I
back.
have a memory of seeing it actually. I'll
Yeah.
go and have another
Yeah.
look. Okay, so
At the
so
cesspool.
parting, yes. I think we'll we'll not say anymore. We'll not say anymore. Last
We'll
last
leave you with
question.
that.
Last question. Um, I've asked this of all my interviewees. COVID's current situation has changed a lot for all of us. You've just described a number of things just there. Um, do
Mhm.
you think there will be one thing that will change forever as a result of this?
As a result of COVID,
As a result of COVID,
uh,
not of this interview.
in my own photography or in the world. It,
You can answer as you choose. I've had different answers. Some in the world is an interesting one in your photography. Answer both.
oh gosh. I think we're all still too close to it right now. We're still living it. We don't know. It's hard to get perspective when you're living through such an unprecedented time. I don't think I understand how anything's going to change. I'm often just trying to get through the day. Not that, I mean, I'm very busy and have a whole nother work life career that we haven't talked about, but um, I'm just ticking off the days and what it looks like on the other side. I don't know. I feel like we're all just going to bust loose. Like
Hmm.
people are just going to go kind of crazy. It'll be really interesting to see
Yeah.
what happens.
I think you might be right. I think we're already starting to a little bit, actually. So on
It's not
that
safe
note,
yet, though. It's dangerous.
no,
My husband just brought me this, that
there you go.
a face mask, because
We didn't need
someone's
to
here in
wear
our
it for
house.
this. We're definitely
He's
distanced.
big on masks.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
taking
you,
the time,
Charlie.
Natalie. I
Yeah,
told you the hour
my
would
pleasure.
disappear fast. Thanks very much for joining me. Thanks for being part of
Thank
this.
you
Thanks
for,
for talking through your pictures and explaining
yeah,
some
I
of the
really enjoyed it.
thoughts behind them.
Thank
It's
you,
been a real
Charlie.
pleasure.
It's been a pleasure for me too.
Hopefully
Bye.
I'll see you again soon. A very wonderful conversation there with Natalie. Her work really does evoke a lot of different senses in people. For me, it's always extremely calming and takes me back to Santa Fe, where I personally had a wonderful time and felt all those emotions that we've talked about today. Do please go and check out Natalie's Instagram feed. It's Natalie_Santa Fe. Details of which are in the bio underneath the YouTube video. And for now, that's all this week. But take care of yourself and look forward to seeing you at any more of my conversations. Next week, I will be joined by Vasily from the Gallery Minimal in Berlin, and hopefully you'll be able to join us. Take care and stay safe.